Polygamy denial it's a modern conspiracy theory promoted by several podcasters and influencers who are playing off emotions of Latter-day Saints who understandably aren't comfortable with plural marriage. And the result is that they are prone to believe absolute nonsense when it's given to them in the right setting.
If you pick up the polygamy denial stick on one end, you get a whole heap of stuff on the other end.
The goal is to knock the legs out of the church.
And now, let us reason together.
Welcome back to Salty Saints. My name is Hayden Holm, and today I have a fine panel of guests. We've got with us David from the Sword of Laban. Check out his YouTube channel and subscribe. We've also got Christopher Blythe, and he is a church historian. You've got PhD, as well as you've got a few YouTube channels. Could you tell us which YouTube channels is your main home and maybe some of the side projects?
You know, Angels and Seer Stones is our real home. And so YouTube's kind of just for fun. So Angels and Seer Stones is available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever you get podcasts. I do put occasionally things up on YouTube. Probably if people follow me, they probably follow me on Facebook more than anything else, where I drop reels and things and give commentary on life and scholarship and the church. And I also have this show called Skeptic. And the Skeptic is my response to polygamy skepticism or polygamy denial, which I started last summer. And it was intended, I called it a mini mission. I was going to do it for 2 weeks. And so it was really intense for a little bit. And now I keep it around. I'll still review when they make new claims and stuff, but I don't want to be too obsessive.
Yeah. Well, we should have put a spoiler alert out, but because I was going to lead it up, but we're going to get right into it. I will still give my joke, though. We have a topic that is more eyebrow raising than Sunday sickness, and that is polygamy denial. Hey! So for that reason, we brought on Christopher Blythe, and he's going to tell us, give us the TLDR version about polygamy denial. This is something that I've seen. I've had relatives reach out and tell us like, hey, there was in the Old Testament and in Scripture instances where we read that if God's prophet ever goes astray, that God will take him out. And then they say Joseph Smith was taken out after he started implementing polygamy, and that is the evidence that God was unhappy with him. But then it gives you some question marks about the other prophets that followed him. So for that reason, we've got Christopher to help us. And is it Christopher or Chris?
Either one sounds great to me.
Right on.
So it's good that you said TLDR, because then I have to control myself. So polygamy denial, in short, is a claim that could be like Hayden just described, but usually in our time is the claim that Joseph was never involved in plural marriage at all. And that this was something that Brigham Young and the apostles instituted. Often the claim is that they had him killed. So, because they thought he would stand in the way of this. And in the aftermath of Joseph's death, these completely fictional, this doesn't really happen, but these apostles forged a series of documents and memories by which they were able to substantiate this. Now, they never showed anyone these documents, but 200 years later, as we're looking at these documents, the reason we see so much evidence for plural marriage under Joseph Smith is because it's a series of forgeries and lies.
Not just the apostles, right? Like the claim is that there's a vast conspiracy of women and men, of the supposed wives of Joseph Smith, who are compelled or for whatever reason incentivized to lie that they were married to Joseph Smith and so on, and to others. Is that true?
The apostles allegedly get it started, right? So sometimes they even refer to these as Brighamites. Not coincidentally, the same name are LDS church members who sometimes have the same opinion used for Latter-day Saints. But yeah, the idea is that apostles and other insiders in the church got this started. They killed Joseph, and then these women who were part of it were, I like incentivized, that's smart. were pressured or rewarded for creating false stories about the past.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so what was like the incentive then?
The incentive was status. I mean, when I look at plural marriage in Salt Lake, I see it as people who are living almost a monastic life, right? If you are marrying Brigham Young or Heber C. Kimball or Jedediah Grant or other men who had, way too many wives, you're sacrificing a lot. This isn't, gosh, maybe people think you're cool that you're married to the prophet, but you don't have a lot of access to a husband. You're, it's a lot of sacrifice. And so I don't see what the real incentive is that people are alleging occurred here. Some of these people aren't even married to Brigham Young or Heber C. Kimball. They're with other husbands, and so they have very little status. The claim is maybe they're pressured religiously. We don't have evidence for that either. It's so funny. We have these journals. We're a journal keeping people, and we are so fortunate to have just a wealth of contemporary sources, particularly in the Utah period, where people are writing down like debates they're having with each other. You know, if there's an argument, if Wilford Woodruff's in an argument, he records it in his journal. And conspicuously missing is any reference like, gosh, I'm trying to convince Eliza Snow to tell everybody that she had a marriage with Joseph Smith. You know, how do I convince Fanny over here that she should tell everybody this massive lie? It's just not there.
So you're looking through these notes, trying to find tinfoil hats, and you're just not finding the tinfoil hats.
Yeah, that's right. So the TLDR of polygamy denial is it's a modern conspiracy theory promoted by several podcasters and influencers who are playing off emotions of Latter-day Saints who understandably aren't comfortable with plural marriage. And the result is that they are prone to believe absolute nonsense when it's given to them in the right setting.
Yeah, and to ignore really the preponderance of evidence, which is well established. And to me, it feels almost like, I'm going to make an analogy. I don't mean to trivialize it, but it feels almost like the following. Like, I had glasses as a kid. Okay, imagine that you had glasses as a kid and you're bullied on the school playground. Everyone's calling you Four Eyes, and you kind of, it's not like something that you enjoy. It's the reality. You're wearing glasses, but everyone's bullying you. And then later in life, you have to stick up for the fact that you did indeed wear glasses as a kid. Like somebody's coming at you and saying, you didn't wear glasses. No, I did. And it's already the sore spot that you then have to justify that actually happened, right? And so we have, as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for years, decades, even going on centuries now, been ridiculed and told that polygamy was of the devil and so forth. And now in the recent years, we have to actually justify that, no, we did indeed practice polygamy. It was a real thing. We have to prove it when it's already proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, right? So this is, I think the reason that it has such power on the minds of some people is that it has these sound bites, these really shallow sound bites. Like Joseph was telling the truth. Like, I believe Joseph, or Joseph and only loved Emma. And there's this like romantic idea that you have to somehow preserve that one man, one woman, Joseph and Emma, that's all there ever was. And they loved each other and we love them. And they will always persist in our memory as these wonderful, righteous one-on-one couple, when in reality, the evidence kind of shows that it's much more complicated than just some modern romantic idea or some soundbite or one-liner on Instagram, right?
Yes, that's really good. It is. So there's sort of a believe women claim in the background of this, even though the suggestion is actually you have to think this mass of women are all liars, but Emma is the one that you need to believe. And Emma, at the end of her life, denied that Joseph practiced plural marriage. And so the claim is, we are slandering Joseph and Emma and saying that, no, They said this because it was smart to say it, not because they were really concerned.
Yeah. Can you speak to why? I mean, this is a deep topic and we can go on with it, but as to why Emma may have denied it and why Joseph Smith seems to have denied it too in a particular statement that is often brought up in support of this.
So Brian Hales wrote an excellent article on Joseph Smith's denials. And he goes through, and his conclusion, I think it's right, is that Joseph's the sort of guy who is being really cautious in his denials. So he says things like, they accuse me of having 7 wives, but I can only find one. Right? He's playing with how do you tell the truth without how do you not directly lie while trying to deceive someone? I don't have a problem with, and so for Brian C. Hales, he's like, Joseph didn't lie because he worked so hard in this way. I think Joseph tried to deceive people. He didn't want to be murdered. This is going to lead to his murder, which we'll talk about later, but that makes good sense. We have Nephi who doesn't want to take out Laban, but he does it, right? And so the idea that Joseph told a lie, to me, just who cares? We know that later prophets, especially related to plural marriage, also told lies to the government under duress. And that's just never been something that has bothered me. Emma Smith is saying this for a few reasons. Some people argue that she's saying this because she's preserving a sort of coded language. So in Nauvoo, when people would deny it, they would talk about he didn't practice polygamy. And according to Val Avery and Linda King Newell, who wrote the book Mormon Enigma, this is the way we should understand Emma's denials, that she's being very cautious and she's using coded language. So she's telling the truth, even though she's being deceptive. I think Emma Smith believes in the gospel of Jesus Christ. I think she knows that polygamy is really, really difficult and she hates it. And I think she believes that it was a mistake. And so by trying to live in this denial space, maybe she can preserve what's good in the religion that her husband restored. So I assume she's an honest woman, but I do in RLDS history, my ancestors are RLDS, right? I'm a convert to the church at 13. I think that this produces a narrative that really speaks to some people, and Emma is wanting to do that. She's wanting to provide this other source. And in my study of RLDS history and Joseph Smith III's life, I can see a few times where they're absolutely willing to tell versions of history that didn't actually occur, including moments related to William Smith, in which we can actually see how they've changed the version of the stories they've told over time to kind of keep this narrative that Joseph Smith III has established.
Yeah, and there's another aspect of this too, which dovetails into that, I think, which is if you go online and you see these polygamy denier videos and the arguments that are made, or if you go to a faithful video that talks about it, and then you go to the comment section, which, by the way, gets wild. I expect this comment section to get wild.
I'm bracing myself. Yeah.
So I have a small channel. I make some videos. I've made one video on polygamy denial, and the comment section was completely different to any other video. And why? Some videos you get antis arguing, the usual tropes, and other videos you don't get any antis showing up. In this video, there was like 3 to 5 people that just kept coming back and back and back. And 50 comments later, they keep coming back. A very small number of people that are just very convinced and that will bend over backwards to not talk about the video, but to talk about all of the examples in Old Testament where actually, Jacob wasn't a polygamist and so on. And
so
Moses
David
only
had
one wife,
grind,
and so on. But the point is, like, this isn't a normal comment section, so I expect maybe this comment section to be the same. But there's another aspect. Go ahead.
it's oddly very similar to the comment we get from anti-Mormons, right? Like, you put out a video and then the comments like, Mormons are a cult that don't believe in the Trinity. And you're like, I wasn't talking about the Trinity in this video, and that's what we get from a lot of polygamy
Thanks for
denial
watching.
comment sections.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, yeah. But one thing that I
Sorry about
note
that.
that is rarely talked about by polygamy deniers, there are some that are honest and that will take this to its logical conclusion, but most of them will focus on Joseph was telling the truth, Joseph and Emma, this romantic story, and then they'll leave it there. But the implication and the corollary here is that Brigham Young is evil and he perpetuated, or he began something. He might have even killed Joseph for all we know, and he began this thing for his own lustful desires, and then other people, and he taught and propagated this evil thing. And so they don't talk about that part of it, but that is the corollary here. And if we're going to accept the fact, the supposed fact that Joseph Smith did not practice polygamy, you kind of have to talk about this other part. And so it's kind of, the reason I say that is it's kind of insidious that polygamy deniers will focus on the good sound bites and stuff without acknowledging the whole other side of the coin, which is that you can't really accept this without having problems with the rest of subsequent church leadership. And a few of them will say, oh, it's fine because, Brigham Young, he did some wrong things, but he was still a prophet. I mean, how far can you take that really? And, there were 6 or 7 presidents of the church after Joseph Smith, I think, that practiced polygamy, something like that. And so this is a very hard thing to wrestle with. If you pick up the polygamy denial stick on one end, you get a whole heap of stuff on the other end. And so it's actually, it's good to know how the history actually happened, and to not be tricked by just some sound bites of one end of a stick, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got
Absolutely.
And that kind of gets into the martyrdom a little bit. And this week in Come Follow Me, we have martyrdom, or maybe it's next week. And we have court transcripts about what happened. We have testimony of the witnesses. We have people that were there, obviously John Taylor and so on, that wrote about it later, DNC 135. And so we know pretty well what's going on there. It seems to me, now give me your take, Chris, but it seems to me that it's just a very hard case to make that Brigham Young killed Joseph Smith. Is that true?
Yeah, definitely. This is, it is such a weird image of Brigham Young to imagine that he murdered the guy that he thought was, they're calling Joseph a god after he dies. Like, if you want to accuse us of idolatry, maybe you could do something there. But the idea that Brigham Young didn't worship this man is crazy. And so Willard Richards and John Taylor, I don't think have a motive. I also think it would be the dumbest strategy in the world. Guys, if you guys wanted to kill me and the three of us are hanging out, and outside is a mob of 200 people that want to kill me, it wouldn't make sense to do the job yourselves. You would just push me out to the mob, right? So it's nonsense. And this is all, the claims have been made before by a few individuals, all of questionable reputation and logic. But Justin Griffin is the most recent. And Justin produced this movie, Who Killed Joseph Smith, in which he goes through and tries to, don't watch it, guys. And he tries to make this case. And, this is forensics. But how could the bullet hole go through this part of the head if it's from outside the room? Well, gosh, guys, we don't have video footage of what happened. By the end of it, he is doing a fictionalized version showing these apostles who have traveled the world at the suggestion of this prophet of God murder him. I can't tell you anything more offensive. Book of Mormon musical, whatever. Alyssa Grenfell. Hayden, I like your work on Alyssa Grenfell's backflip thing. That's hilarious.
Appreciate that. She did reach out. She made a comment on there in case you didn't see it. She said, "I write my own scripts." LOL. So she took it well.
All right. You then had to clarify that you were her. in that scene.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yes,
So if I do any future, I might have to wear a wig or something like that.
That sounds good. But I don't find any of that offensive in the same way, right? I kind of expect it. But when someone when someone who professes to be within our fold all of a sudden turns and gives this story, particularly with the use of modern media and stuff to give it some sort of level of legitimacy, I find it really reprehensible. And that's where we're at right now. There's no motive, there's no reason for this to have happened, but we actually have people do it. And just like David said, you pick up one stick of this thing, and every new podcaster tries to find a way of justifying how the church can still be the church, kind of. But that's not the goal here. The goal is to knock the legs out of the church.
Yeah, it is indeed. Even if they don't admit it, right? And it's each piece of evidence that is brought up without context. Many of them sound pretty interesting, like, oh, I'm tantalizing, and like, wow, did that really happen? Especially if it's your first time hearing something like this. But each piece of evidence has a perfectly justifiable alternate reason. Like, for instance, I've heard the argument that Brigham Young, that because he was involved in the murder, that's why he and John Taylor and others didn't show up to testify against the murderers. But no, you know why they didn't testify against the murderers? Well, a number of reasons. First of all, the court case was going to be a farce anyway. It's a kangaroo court. And so they knew that they couldn't win. They'd basically given up on the state. The only reason the court case was proceeding is because the state of Illinois had to justify its good name and show that actually justice did exist within the state. And that was the sort of point. The court case was between the state of Illinois and the murderers. And it wasn't the church trying to hang the murderers of Joseph Smith. They kind of already resigned to the fact that the murderers would have to face the wrath of God in the eternal scheme. And Mormons would simply try and keep the peace for the next, 2 years or so until they could just finish the temple, take out their endowments, and leave. They just wanted, and so these like Brigham Young, John Taylor, and scores of other people, they were in hiding because they didn't want to get served with subpoenas. They didn't want to have to appear before a court and testify. They had to. So not only, it's one thing to rally a group of Mormons in fair weather. It's quite another thing for Brigham Young to rally a group of Mormons in all of this completely crazy fallout that happened after this, with the house burnings and the mob activity. Every day was different. And meanwhile, Brigham Young and the 12 are in hiding for a lot of that time, especially during the court case. Yeah. They don't want to be found. And then they go and they dedicate the temple very early in the morning, trying to presumably not create a lot of fuss, and yet they still draw a crowd, and they dedicate the temple, and there's people in the crowd. They see them, they're in the crowd that are ready to apprehend them afterwards and serve them or whatever. They cleverly leave during the final song so that they can't get either captured or subpoenaed or served.
Wait a second, real quick. So are you telling me if I leave before the final song, if I'm at the conference center or in a priesthood session or at the stake center, that I'm actually following the prophet's example by doing that?
Sounds like a precedent. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. but the corollary of that is they mustn't have had food afterwards. They didn't have any funeral potatoes to eat after that.
They didn't get the refreshments.
Yeah.
But they didn't have to put up the chairs.
Yeah.
So David, this is a great story. Mm-hmm. And this is, do you know the story of the false Brigham? Are you going to tell us about it?
Yeah, where they dressed up the guy. What's his name? William?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to butcher it. Why don't you go ahead? I don't even remember.
Well, I don't know his name, but this is the big thing, right? Starting at this point in church history, we have prophets who are trying to evade the law. Obviously, earlier with Joseph, the Nauvoo Temple comes a place where people can hide out. And they're doing that all the way into the 1880s in Logan Temple, right? Where people are trying to arrest leaders of the church. And so here's an early example. And so they send out, people don't know what Brigham looks like, so they send out a fake Brigham Young to be arrested. Which is just so fun, right?
That's great.
Think that's fantastic.
Yeah, here it is. So this guy's name was William Miller, and basically Governor Ford insisted that the militia would have to take a man into custody. These weren't locals; they were just people sent out by Governor Ford of Illinois, and the marshals showed up. They escorted their prisoner to Carthage, only to find the Mormons had dressed William Miller in Brigham's clothes and perpetrated a hoax. and then they went into hiding. Young and the 12 went into hiding. None were ever arrested, and this case
What a
against Brigham
rascal.
was dismissed.
How
It
can we
works.
believe? How can we believe Brigham Young's a real prophet when he's willing to do some chicanery like that, guys? We got the wrong
Right.
religion. We messed up. Yeah.
It makes me want to follow him that much more. I mean, like, look at that. The original salty saint right there. Ha! He's taking it right to him.
I like it a lot. Brigham says throughout his life, he's not trying to be killed. He says, I'm not looking to be martyred. Joseph walked to Carthage jail. He's not doing that. And so from the beginning, he's showing us in Nauvoo that, yeah, he's not going to show up to a court case to be arrested and hurt by these guys. Let me tell you my favorite story in Nauvoo that's not well known after the martyrdom. So Joseph's killed June 27th. The apostles are out of town till August 5th, August 4th, except for Parley P. Pratt and John Taylor in town and Willard Richards. But they find, there's a legend that circulates, 12 barrels of oil for the Nauvoo Legion. And each of these 12 barrels, I think it's 12 barrels, not one barrel with 12 things on it, but there are drops of blood on each of the barrels. And so the story goes out that why are there drops of blood? Because there's going to be 12 of us killed. And they only have 2 so far. And so early Latter-day Saints are expecting more martyrdom. They're expecting things to happen here. And they'd really, really like to make sure it doesn't go that way. Eventually, Brigham's going to say, when they first show up to Nauvoo, the 12 released this letter that says, hey, expect martyrdom. We escaped from Missouri, but people are going to die. And before we're leaving Nauvoo, Brigham Young gives a talk that says, guys, you don't understand what happened. Like when Joseph gave his life for the saints, it meant that we don't have to be killed. We don't have to face this. We can go off. And so really interesting moment. And if you're talking about those 2 years in Nauvoo, yeah, people are experiencing real fear. I'd say paranoia, but it's not. It's a real fear of people doing them harm.
Yeah. And I don't think it was a foregone conclusion either what would happen. There was a lot of uncertainty, not only fear, but uncertainty. Like after Joseph was killed, it's not like it was obvious that they would just up and leave. And it was just a matter of time to finish the temple. So they lived in this kind of uncertain state for a long time. Yeah, I wonder if, it just makes me think, the more I learn about Joseph Smith's martyrdom, the stronger my testimony of Brigham Young, of this 2-year period. It's just a fascinating period where Brigham Young did incredible things after being in continual hiding, like while they're laboring on a temple that they know that they can't keep, and he managed to keep the morale up enough such that they could actually finish this temple, put the capstone on, put the shingles on the roof, and do all that. When everyone by that point, with this is towards the end of the 2 years, they kind of knew that they were leaving at this point. Yet he managed to have everyone finish this temple and then just stay up all night doing endowments and then leave in February. And he was one of the first ones to leave. And they had planned to leave later, if I'm not mistaken, that they wanted to leave after the winter for obvious reasons, but they ended up it getting so bad that Brigham Young just left in February one day. And then I think the next day 1,000 of the saints left, and then they kept leaving after that. So just the worst time of year to leave. And you can just imagine that a man that can do that to a people, to draw them after him out into the cold of winter, into the unknown, after having just wasted their energy and effort to build this temple that they had to wave goodbye to in their homes. And a man that can rally people under these conditions and not have them all just fall apart is just incredible. So it just really hurts me that people would say that he was a bad man and he was just doing it for gratification reasons and so forth.
So is that part of the polygamy denial piece then? Is that the capstone? Is that it was Brigham Young? So if I have my clue card out here, it's Brigham Young, and then the reason was because he wanted to practice polygamy. And then he decided to flee into the West so that he could. Is that right?
Yeah, that is
with the
key.
candlestick.
Yes, at Carthage jail is the murder. But yeah, that's exactly the idea. Is that they're taking off, and the purpose of going off is plural marriage. Now, the crazy thing about this is that we have Brigham Young's diary, and there's this one entry, and I don't talk about it because it's a little spicy, but he has a dream where a woman that's salty, guys. He had a dream where this woman comes onto him, and it's written really wild. This is, the woman, takes off her dress or whatever, and he says there were no signs that she had ever had a baby. And she's calling him over, and he says, and the paragraph is about how he refuses to be tempted by this woman in his dream. So Brigham Young's a normal guy, but he's trying to be a moral guy. And so we actually have evidence in his personal private writings of him saying, gosh, we need to keep our, actually evidence that he's trying to keep his thoughts and actions and even dreams pure. Pretty cool.
Look at that. That's a stand-up guy right there. Like that was like the OG pornography, before you had the internet. It's like, hey, there it is. So he said no, like that's a whole Joseph moment right there. That's fantastic.
Exactly. Yes, it's a Joseph of Egypt moment. We got it from Brigham in his sleep.